Good afternoon. Sorry I'm late. Usually, well, the only reason I'm ever late here is somebody's life or death crisis is holding me up. Not just the ethnic studies teacher, I'm the drug counselor. So today, happily, I had to get somebody into treatment. So that was a win for our side, fighting the forces of addiction and ignorance. But that also meant that everybody else got pushed. So sorry about that. Not the usual excuse. In the reading, have you read about Phyllis Wheatley?
What?
Yeah. It's in the reading, but okay. All right. What I had prepared will, first let's see if the machines are talking to each other. They appear to be. Okay, good. I am going to do something I had prepared. We had not talked in any depth about axiology yet, yes? Correct? You've never heard me mention it before? Okay. In some of your communications, you're talking about not only the things that you've discovered as a result of the class, but of course, you naturally share them with your friends and you get into controversies, the usual stereotypical statements and arguments, et cetera, and some of your questions, when you ask questions, is like, okay, well, how do I counter this, right? If you wanted to develop the skill for doing that, and that's part of one of the things that happens, where part of the lecture I was actually putting together is tying together not only, the revolutionary citizens, which is chapter 3 of Kelly, but tying that to today, because I always try and do that. It's usually what happens is the underestimation of intelligence. And there's lots of different ways of doing that, and lots of different ways the matrix of domination does that and sets you up. So that as, for example, yesterday in class, the person that I had actually got into treatment said, somebody said you're a racist. They seen you on television and you said some things and well, who's saying that? Well, it's my neighbor. Oh, the neighbor with the arsenal. Oh, okay, sure, I could see that. Well, what did I specifically say? And that made me a racist. And I said, I started running through some of my stock sayings, and I said, okay, what was done, once done to us because of race is now being done to you for the money. Yeah, that's the one. Well, that's true. That's not even an original observation. It's just like somebody, emailing me a death threat because I said Beethoven was black, and I'm quoting white people. Look, you saw the references. I mean, who's writing those books about Beethoven? It's white people. It's not, there's no Afrocentric people writing in 1927. Who is that? Okay, so if Europeans are saying that, and, here is the genealogy books with all these names, Schwartzman, Schwarzkopf, Schwarzenegger, straight language, that's all. So you're not necessarily conditioned to think of people on an equal basis, but you don't have a means of exploring the roots of the culture that is causing you to have these beliefs. And I'm saying you don't have to necessarily believe the way I do. You just have to understand that part of what I'm doing is showing you how people think, where they got the ideas that they got. So, black psychologists, that is, psychologists who happen to be African American, have to go through the same training in the same school system in the Western canon, and realizing, okay, this ain't working for us because it's not containing our worldview at all. So we got to be able to explain what that worldview is. So in philosophy, there is the study of logic. Now, I once had to challenge, I might have mentioned this, and I'm not proud of it, but I had to, in order to get out of my math requirement for my BA, I had to challenge the logic final. And because I challenged the logic final and got an A, I didn't have to do algebra. Not proud of that, but, the idea was that the academies recognizing the reason they were making you take math is so that you can think in a logical fashion. What algebra trains you to do is find answers to questions where you already have the information. You already have the skill. But all you have to do is basically work in a systematic fashion in a process to get to the answer. And then you can check your work, right? So, logic is a means of reasoning to an answer. Okay? The answer does not have to be true. But it does have to be consistent with the logic. Now, one of the challenges with philosophy, especially within the Western canon, is you are presented with a logic system that you're not supposed to question, that is supposed to be universal for everyone. I mean, that's what Western civilization does. We're the norm that you're supposed to conform to. But it doesn't necessarily tell you where that logic came from. It's, in that sense, ahistorical. A meaning without history. Or the history's been constructed. But you don't necessarily get where that logic came from. So, because, as I've told you, African Americans in particular, Black Indians definitely, we want to know the history of something. Where did this come from? This didn't come out of nowhere. Where did this come from? In philosophy, the study of values. So, when the Republicans say, we're values voters or family values. Okay, what kind of family are we talking about? Well, they're talking about nuclear family. Mom and dad, biological kids, boom, 2.3 kids or whatever, however many you have. I was going to show this funny Chris Rock thing. Y'all seen it? Chris Rock, he's appealing to white voters. You want a white president? Vote for Obama. And here's the logic, right? Comedy funny, but so. In philosophy, the study of values is axiology. So just like in English, so ology, anytime you see ology behind anything, that suffix means study of whatever the suffix is. So an axis, so there's various words with axis in English, right? So axis is basically an imaginary line around which something rotates, okay? An axiom is basically in philosophy or mathematics. So for example, the identity element, a thing equals itself, right? You hold those things to be true without proof. Values are things you hold to be true without proof. You know, all men are created equal, right? So within axiology, though, that statement, all men are created equal, but some men are equaler than others, and some men, we won't even consider men, right? So all men are created equal in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, et cetera, does not mean all human beings present. Does not. But you're not thinking about questioning the logic of that. He takes it to mean that, but you know that, they're not talking about everybody. That's not the same as all my relations within 6 nations, which is, inclusive not only of human beings, but other things as well. Okay, which is a different axiology. So, Dr. Edwin Nichols, let's see if we're up and running. An African-American industrial psychologist, developed a construct called axiology that a number of us have been following. That I've also developed into a construct called axiochemistry. So, axiology, the philosophical study of values. And Dr. Edwin Nichols, so an axiom is something held to be true without proof. Okay, just like the statement, we hold these truths to be self-evident. I really have to get a faster machine. But Gabriel, you have been serving me well, so find if you name things that have power, it's best to get along with them. Treat them as if they have a... Because it does act like it has a personality sometimes. This will take actually longer than 20 minutes. So, quick axiology. So, Edwin Nichols actually usually takes 2 days to explain, which actually takes a week to do this. I'll see how far we get in just under 2 hours. And basically explain some of the things that, for example, we've been witnessing over the presidential campaign as a way of relating the revolutionary citizens and the attitudes that were held 200 years ago for black people, and now we have the first black president who got reelected, and I got amidst, I did send it on email, but I didn't include it in the power presentation. I'm not going to show you it here, but maybe I will Monday. But I got, as part of the congratulations, my family saying, yeah, I got a lynching photography of the president from someone. Like, okay, how did you get my number, and why are you sending me this picture? Like, wow, okay, is this a message? Is this, what is this? Interesting. Should I send this to the Secret Service? Maybe I won't trip. I'll use it in a lecture. All right, so philosophical study of values. So, Ed Nichols, Uncle Ed, not a blood uncle, but one of, black psychologists, black shrinks, homie of my dad. He's a clinical industrial psychologist. So a clinical psychologist basically works with individuals on their psychological problems. An industrial psychologist works with organizations on how people work together, what the psychology is. So he actually developed this construct he calls axiology, which actually is a branch of philosophy to help international corporations with diverse workforces work together. Now, he's come under some criticism, and yeah, there is, and he will admit what the shortcomings of this construct are, like they're stereotypical. And he's saying, right, not everybody in these 4 axiologies. He said, look, think about what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to basically reduce, at that time, 4 billion people into 4 broad axiologies so that I can teach it to a corporation, which actually, if we're going to spend the time to do this, this should take a semester. 12 or 14 weeks, if you're going to do it right, to have your workforce work together. But they're not willing to pay me for a semester. They're going to only pay me for 2 days. So, which means in 2 days, that's actually, an 8-hour day, breaks for lunch, breaks for potty. That's actually 12 hours of delivery, 6 hours in a day. So how are you going to teach people about 4 different axiologies in 12 hours? That's ridiculous. But okay, fine. I'll try and do it. And then you work with it. I'll give you the basic concepts and you work with it from there. So he's saying, look, it's a reductionist model. So not everybody's going to fit. And what it doesn't take into account is this whole issue of assimilation and acculturation, which remind me, and I'll tell you what those things are, because then you'll see how complicated it is. It goes into the question is, how black is Barack Obama? How black is Mark Harris? Well, what is black? Oh, you don't look the way you sound over the phone. Oh, you don't sound black. Well, what's black? All the black people I know with college degrees sound like this from LA. What's black? What's your stereotype? What's Indian? What's white? What's this? What's that? So Edwin Nichols, basically, so Nichols and Associate, it's an applied behavioral science firm affecting technology transfer to organizations based on principles of philosophy, basic and behavioral science. Now, the technology transfer that he's talking about refers to a construct he developed which allows people to utilize perceivable differences. So that's often the issue with diversity. Not that it exists, but what do you do with it? How do you utilize it? We have these bumper stickers. Eugene is really famous for this, honor diversity, et cetera, which, and in practice, what that seems to be is honoring gay and lesbian people, because it's not about diversity, about ethnic diversity. Obama got elected by basically, 78% of the people that elected Obama were people of color. The Republicans if 50,000 Latino voters become eligible to vote every day, and you ain't accessing them, and even Romney said, well, they're natural Republicans because they have family values and they're hardworking, and yeah, okay, well, you can't say stuff like voluntary deportation and win them over. That ain't gonna work. Sorry, that's not their axiology. You need to be doing something different. Because the perception is you don't care, which is kind of goes along with some of the founding fathers, really, too. And when you talk, people are talking about, we got to take our country back. Your country? It's not our country? But, okay. So, he's committed. So the construct is that developed was axiology, which allows people to utilize perceivable differences. He's committed to helping organizations achieve systemic, what he calls systemic congruence, through cultural competence, thus assuring a competitive edge. So, systemic congruence basically means you actually do